Hey, everyone. Hi. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Alice.
Hey now.
Greg, what are you doing here?
Hey, what do you mean?
Allison, where'd you come from, Greg?
I came from the world of Childish, and I just want to make sure that your listeners know that you're just as wonderful on the other podcast you do.
What if they don't have kids?
Don't need them. You don't need them. A lot of our listeners actually tell us they don't have kids. We talk about sex.
We talk about all sorts of dirty stuff, but also parenting stuff.
Yeah, so.
Check out Childish. New episodes every Wednesday, wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey, everyone. Hi. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Allison Rosen is Your New Best Friend. I'm very excited to introduce my guest today. It's Tim Heidecker. He is an actor, comedian, writer, director, producer, musician, podcast host, father, activist, maybe, sort of, in a way.
Sure.
He is so prolific. So you know him from many projects, but Tim and Eric's Awesome Show and all the related offshoots and related projects. Check it out with Steve Brule, on Cinema, and then most recently on Showtime, a show which I just binge watched, Moonbase 8. And he hosts the very popular call-in podcast Office Hours Live, and then also a prolific, the second time I've used the word prolific in just what feels like a couple sentences, but that's how true it is. Put out a number of music albums, not comedy albums, earnest-ish music albums, including one that's stuck in my head right now, Fear of Death. Tim Heidecker, hello.
Well, hello, Allison. Thank you so much. That was a terrific introduction. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So trying to figure out if we should talk
Where to
about
start.
What'd you say?
Where to start?
Where to start?
Conundrum.
Exactly. You know what? I do want to talk about Moonbase 8 because I've become obsessed with The Vow and Seduced and NXIVM. And I'm not a true crime person, but all of a sudden I'm all in. But I took a break from all of that to watch Moonbase 8. So I do want to talk about that. But let's first talk about Fear of Death because I love this album. The title track, Fear of Death, the speaker is someone who is very fearful and feels that he's done growing. And he's sort of just it's fear of death that's keeping him going. That doesn't sound like you. Who is the speaker of that song?
Well, everybody everybody I play or talk or whatever, if I'm writing a song, it's coming from some place in me. I think a lot of times my songwriting is sort of this id or this subconscious, cathartic shadow. Yeah, it's just it's the darker thoughts you have, and then you manage them and don't dwell on them or become obsessed with them. But I do think, I'm 40, going to be 45, and I'm at a place in my life where I think those kind of existential questions about, life and the future and facing my eventual death are starting to become more present in my daily sort of back of my head, my unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm writing, it's not something I'm too intellectual about. It's I'll pick up a guitar and I'll start singing, and if I feel a sentiment coming on, I guess that day I was thinking, I'm done. What do I? I'm much happier at home. I don't need to go out and socialize. I'm married and I have kids, and I'm happy in that moment, and then that kind of led to this, sort of maybe making that a little bit more dramatic for the sake of the song. But it is a funny, or I don't know, funny is a weird word, but it's sort of a an interesting way of looking at why we live is one of the reasons is we don't want to die, you know, and we there's a survival instinct in us. So the song kind of comes out of that. But it's great that I have the opportunity to expunge these feelings through music and kind of get them out of my head in a way, or at least acknowledge them and not just kind of keep it internalized. Right.
Well, I definitely relate to that. Also being married, and I have 2 little kids. This sort of, and it's an unpleasant realization. I mean, maybe it's midlife crisis, middle age kind of dawning on you. It's this unpleasant feeling that like, oh, I'm no longer in the phase of my life where I'm building and adding.
Yes.
Maybe this is where I'm kind of, I just am the thing I'm going to be.
Yes. That's also that part of the song of, I think I'm done growing. And, I've been, as you've sort of listed my credits, I've done a lot of stuff and I've accomplished a lot of things I've wanted to do. So, and not that I've achieved any kind of success that I don't know. I mean, I guess you could probably ask this to any artist, Bruce Springsteen or whoever, and say like, have you achieved your goals? And I bet most people would say, no, I'm still trying to do this thing that I haven't really done perfectly yet, or I haven't, there's always new stages or new levels to what you're trying to do. But yeah, I made a lot of TV and I've made a lot of music, and I've done sort of lots of variations of what I wanted to do as a kid. And so I think it is a period of time, especially this year, where it's like, okay, now what can I do? And also what do I want to do? They're 2 sometimes very different things.
So you managed to be a satirist who's known for absurdism, and then you do the music, which is a little more straightforward. You are Tim Heidecker, the guy that hosts the podcast, who is you, essentially, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as we all are, however we are when we present ourselves publicly, which is not always the exact
right.
The way
it hews pretty closely to the actual Tim Heidecker, I'm going to guess, without knowing you well.
Yes.
But then there's also these fictionalized versions of Tim Heidecker that exist out there, and it's really, someone should write a term paper on it. Like it's very postmodern, and it's really interesting how you're able to straddle all these worlds. It seems to me that you are not concerned with that creating confusion for people. Is that true?
That's true. I certainly 10 years ago probably was very excited about it, or more than 10, as I'm doing these things, as I'm building these things. That part, I grew up watching Andy Kaufman and, I think other people too, like Steve Martin and Albert Brooks, even, Albert Brooks is confusing maybe for some people, but he was also a stand-up comedian before he started making movies, and his act was a bad comedian, like a really hacky, failed comedian, So there's a precedence for this, and there is this like the Steve Martin that presents himself as the host of Saturday Night Live as that kind of really obnoxious person was always Steve Martin. And it was just a character, that he was doing, but wasn't going by a different name. So, and Eric and I were starting, there was something really funny in the characters, in the kind of stuff we were doing. And, the way we wanted to present it, that was very much about this kind of obnoxious, self-promoting kind of attitude. So that kind of is where it started. And then some of it might just be lazy, and some of it is just like not really, and On Cinema, for example, it started without really much thought, it was just me and Greg entertaining ourselves. And then it seemed silly to just have a fake name. It just seems hacky in a way to us, or to me, that, I'm going to be Joe Feldman. Well, why? Who cares? So that, and for a while it was a fun way to behave in the way we did press and the way we talked about our work and kind of be in character. But, that it gets a little old after a while too. So,
well, I guess what I'm wondering is with the music where people might expect that it's going to be comedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and part of me doing press and talking and the way my publicist might put a press release out and things like that are to try to help explain that. And we knew that it was going to be, people have short attention spans. I don't expect them to people are busy. They don't have time to parse my bullshit. And what am I up to these days? But, now that I've got some albums under there's now a way to talk about my music that's not necessarily, is the joke on us? Like, a music publication is going to understand that I can also put out music and I like doing that too. And I'm not trying, it's not a prank on you to listen to it.
Oh, well, thank God. You said that when you were young, you had a lot of, aspirations and you've accomplished a lot of those things. What did you want to be at the earliest age?
I think I aspired to be a talk show host. I think that was the first thought, really, that my parents tell me that, seeing Johnny Carson on TV or whoever was on, Merv Griffin during the afternoon was probably somebody I thought, and then, Saturday Night Live, I thought I was going to be a part of that show in some way. But yeah, doing something in front of the camera, acting. I always did theater and had bands and stuff. But I think the earliest thing would have been, something on TV.
Mm-hmm. I know you grew up in Allentown, which I don't really know what Allentown is like. What was your childhood like?
I worked in a coal mine from the age of 9. No, it's a former steel town. It's an industrial town, but we were living in the suburbs. My dad had a car dealership, a small Ford car dealership that his dad had gotten. So we were, there's a perception of that being, we were rich kids, but it was a Ford dealership in the 1980s. So it was very,
well, plus if you're working in a coal mine, I don't think of that as rich.
No, I'm saying like my dad was a small businessman.
Yeah.
And, we grew up Catholic, but not strict. I went to Catholic school because it was, a better school than the public school. And, was involved in theater and some sports. So it was very normal, pretty normal, middle-class suburban situation.
Do you have siblings?
A younger sister, 3 years younger than me.
What are your parents like?
They're funny. I think my dad's very sarcastic and very smart and kind of, doesn't trust authority and finds a lot of humor in that. My mom's more musical, a little sillier, and I think I get both of those two different traits. Mm-hmm. I use both of those traits.
So you wanted to do something on television, and then where'd you go to college?
In Philadelphia, Temple University.
My dad went to medical school there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you went to college, and then I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, what was Tim and Eric the first thing you did that kind of hit?
Yeah. I had bands. I had a band called the Tim Heidecker Masterpiece. That was a satirical kind of Spinal Tap kind of band, and we were making a go of it in New York and playing out a lot, and did a couple videos and made a couple records. But going back to Philly after graduating, and then going back to Philly and making films, sort of short films with Eric as just a recreational activity, just as a fun thing to do, turned into something that we started to take a little more seriously and put more time and energy into making them. And, after a year or so doing that, we had a nice, a little library. In fact, we put out the first thing we put out after because some of this was stuff we had done in college, but we put out this VHS tape called The Best of 5 Years. And it was like a best of compilation of our shorts. This was before our first cartoon or anything. This was just for friends. But that was like, we had that attitude. We had this very arrogant kind of how great we are vibe going from the very beginning.
And how did you and Eric meet?
In college, we were in freshman dorm, lived a couple doors down from each other, and we're in the same classes, same interests in the film and comedy world. Really, we didn't really think about it in terms of comedy. We just were funny together.
Tim and Eric has such a recognizable particular aesthetic, particular look. How did that come about? And is that more, were you guys both into that look? Was it more one of you?
I think it was both of us. Eric had, after college had a job as a videographer for weddings and bar mitzvahs and, parties. And he started actually, filming, videotaping these things. And then he, as a small business, kind of started editing them and sort of found this world of like that, consumer editing style that was funny, it was already really funny to us. So our first films had a little bit of that. We had done stuff in college that had that kind of sort of I guess you could say like a star wipe aesthetic to it, that was kind of cable access.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I think, if I really think about it, there's something very tangible and easy to actually make that kind of stuff. So you could make something that was kind of cheesy and get away with it being funny because you're intentionally doing that. But you couldn't, we tried to make serious movies. Like I tried to make a serious movie in college because that was kind of the assignment. And they came out just terrible, because you don't have the production. You didn't have the resources or I didn't have the experience to do it the right way. And so, you kind of, by sort of giving into the lo-fi quality of it, you could kind of, make something really funny with the tools you actually had.
What was your serious movie about?
It was like about these white Philly guys who were like racist, and they were kind of racist, but then there's a scene where they're around this black guy and they were kind of like that was sort of the turn in the movie, and they're like, when they're around black people, they behave differently. And that was kind of the, it was a little 10-minute thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like, I'd gotten these actors that weren't very good, and it was really serious and really, it was like, kind of a Jim Jarmusch kind of thing. Black and white, gritty. And it was just, it's not really what I wanted to do. Honestly, it was kind of the assignment to like write a script, tell a story, shoot it, that kind of thing. But on the side, we were, making prank phone calls and shooting ourselves with wigs on and, being idiots.
But was there something you were noticing about, and I'm not trying to make this more of something than it was. So if I'm headed down the wrong path, take me off of it. But like, I'm just wondering, was there something you were noticing about race relations that you were making a statement about?
It very well could be. I think, I was becoming fairly politically awakened at that time, and living in Philadelphia was a good place to see up front sort of the racial issues happening all around you. But I think at Temple University, their film school is very conscious about making films that had social impact, or that that has social commentary or point of view, and they really pushed that to a little bit. So part of it was the direction that the class was going in, I guess. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to look at. I think the film was called Men You've Met. And it was sort of me looking at men, which I always have still do, is, complicated, not so perfect men that I could easily sort of relax myself into being if I really wanted to blend in with my kind.
Your kind being men
Just
from Philadelphia or men?
Yeah, men, white men from, Germanic Irish descent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I read an interview with you where the interviewer was asking about something that you had tweeted after, and I'm forgetting the event that prompted this tweet, but it was like white men or white teens, if you're, dabbling in white pride stuff and feeling freaked out today and need to talk to someone, DM me.
That's probably after Charlottesville, I would think. Yeah.
And then you were saying in this interview that, I think it was in the outline, you were saying that, like the interviewer was pointing out that it's interesting that you are open to talking to people like this you were saying that you can understand how someone could fall into that, like almost like maybe you could have.
Yeah, if I can't, there's a lot there, but I think I recognize that in my own work that there not that there's anything racial or even not in any kind of gender way or in any kind of racial way but there's a nihilism in it, and there's a rejection of norms and a rejection of the mainstream. And, I still believe in a lot of that, or I still have my issues with kind of the conformity of mass entertainment or the conformity of political parties or whatever. But I could see the guy who feels that way about the world, and then finds a group that is providing a real, almost like in the punk movement or something, a real kind of rejection of the norms and rejection of the what's accepted in society or whatever. And I understand how young men can find themselves in chat rooms and in groups where there's a humor in sort of the name calling, the sort of mean nastiness of that 4chan world that I could see being, as a 13-year-old boy, which I was in those kind of groups in the very early days of the internet, doing terrible things and doing just, being a total little piece of shit, not really understanding consequences and not understanding that there are real people on the other end and that stuff. But yeah, so that's just to say, I mean, I would think there's a grace period maybe where if you're, you fall into that, maybe I understand that can be appealing and there's a sense of community there. But at some point, there should be a way out for those people quickly to say, like, you know what, this is, I have some fundamental, moral, ethical issues here that I can't be associated with these ideas anymore. So I understand that there are people and there's kids that might have seen something in our work that felt dangerous or reject, sort of anti-authoritarian, and then are confused when I am, say, I'm, supporting Joe Biden, or that I'm anti-Trump, or that I don't agree with the nastiness of the alt-right, and they get sort of like, but I thought you were edgy, dude, And I just say, well, no, I'm a human being with like what I think is some kind of moral compass, that doesn't make me better than you. But if it comes down to like basic fundamental issues of equality and, that kind of stuff, it was just never been room for sort of compromise there for me.
Were you angry when you were a teen?
Was I angry when I was a teen? No, I don't think I was too angry. I was, no, I don't think I had anger issues. I'm sure I had my moments, but I was pretty happy, I think.
So the messing around in chat rooms was really just kind of messing around.
It was like prank phone calling. Like, I think I can remember one. There was a group. There was like a soap opera chat room, and I went in there and said, my baby's choking on food, and baby's turning blue, and you're right to not laugh. It's terrible. But what was funny to me was that people in this message room were like, "Stop chatting and go." It was like, what should, and my joke was that I just kept going like, what should I do? What should I do? Oh no. And, it was funny to me and my friends because that obviously wasn't happening. But that was the kind of stuff, just dumb and kind of gross, flaming out on people in AOL message boards. I didn't do it very often, but, when you realize that potential was there. It's the same as a prank phone call, it's like you could entertain yourself for hours doing that kind of stuff.
You said that your dad was would question authority or was anti-authority. Like in what way?
He was like an example would be like watching televangelists on TV and getting a kick out of that and laughing at Morris Cerullo was a guy that we loved, and we just would crack ourselves up watching that. He just didn't trust politicians. He's a very libertarian kind of guy. That's about it. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't like living off the grid or anything like that. Mm-hmm. He's still fairly, lives a kind of normal life, but
he's politically libertarian.
I would say that. Yeah.
Does that create conflict between you guys?
We've kind of created a safe space where politics are not discussed. It gets a little awkward because he was staying with us when Trump caught the virus a few months ago. And you just don't bring it up, it just doesn't come up. And then you kind of like go in the other room and talk to my wife. Like, did you see what's happening? Is he alive? So yeah, it's just, you end up going around in the same old arguments and it's not really worth it.
Mm-hmm. Listen, it's never too early to start gift shopping for the holidays, especially because today you can save big on a gift they'll use every day, Raycon wireless earbuds. I love Raycon wireless earbuds. They're super comfortable. I've been listening to a lot of show tunes. It's just my thing lately, but I've also been listening to Tim Heidecker's Fear of Death nonstop. And I recommend you do the same. Nonstop. With seamless Bluetooth pairing and a comfortable noise isolating fit, you can start listening right away and keep listening for hours. The audio quality is amazing, comparable to what you get from other premium brands, except Raycons start at half the price. Go to buyraycon.com/bestfriend today to get 20% off your Raycon order, but hurry. This offer is available for a limited time only and you don't want to miss it. That's buyraycon.com/bestfriend to get 20% off your Raycons, buyraycon.com/bestfriend. I also want to tell you guys about something that I love. It's called Storyworth. They've been on the show before. Every time I mention it, listeners go out and get it, and then they tell me how much their family loves it. So Storyworth, what it is, it's a subscription you buy for probably a family member, but really you could buy it for yourself. You could buy it for anyone. And each week they receive a prompt. You can kind of choose the questions, but there's a bunch of questions you choose from. And so it'll be like, tell me about a prank you pulled when you were young, or tell me about learning to drive, or what was did you have odd jobs? All sorts of things like that. And then they respond to the prompt, and then Storyworth collects all of this. And at the end of a year, puts it in a hardbound book. So you have a book of memories from this person. I got it from my dad. I thought I had heard every single story of his, and I discovered stuff I didn't know about him. And I love that I have this for my kids. So Storyworth is an online service that helps your loved ones share stories through thought-provoking questions about their memories and personal thoughts. After 1 year, Storyworth will compile all your stories into a beautiful keepsake book that's shipped for free. Give your loved ones the gift of spending time together wherever you live with Storyworth. Get started right away with no shipping required by going to storyworth.com/bestfriend. You'll get $10 off your first purchase. That's storyworth.com/bestfriend, storyworth.com/bestfriend for $10 off. Okay. You've been married since 2007, right? How did you and your wife meet?
She was a background artist on on Awesome Show, and she had come down from Canada to appear in the episode. I don't know, background art. She was like in a classroom with some other college. Look like not. She's not in college. She's old. She's in her 20s. I was in my 20s too. But anyways, she was a fan of our first show, Tom Goes to the Mayor. And we, in those days, we would cast through like MySpace. It was, we were not really, we didn't know what we were doing. So we had put out like sort of to people come and be in this classroom sketch, and she came. And we also had a mutual friend, and that night went out and had dinner, and kind of been with her ever since.
Wow. Did you always want kids?
I think by the time I met Marilyn, I knew I wanted kids. Yeah. By the time I met my wife, I think there was probably a time in, college when I probably wasn't thinking about it very much, but yeah, I think, and after I kind of settled in as this is, my job is what I do. I can do this as for a living now. And I just felt, I knew that I wanted kids.
What kind of dad are you?
I'm terrific. I'm like the oldest brother in the family, more than anything. There's a lot of, my daughter we're like the Three Stooges. There's a lot of physical slapstick going on. My daughter thinks it's hilarious to kick me in the shins a couple times a day. She'll come up and do it sort of covertly. She'll walk up like, "Hey, how's it going?" Boom! Ah! You son of a... And I throw them on the bed, and I, wrestle and stuff. And, but yeah, I mean, it's great. I think the real parents would be honest with you and say, I don't like playing like trains with my kid. I don't like that. So there's like lots of tedious, boring elements of especially when they're like 3 and 4, you're like, and the train goes around again. Okay. You just want to be like, I want to do anything else but this. But it's the older they get, I think you can, I play music with my daughter. We do all kinds of, playing and writing and drawing and all that kind of stuff. So it's great.
There was a video that you did where you were asked to eulogize yourself. It's amusing in the comments to see people go like, "Oh, phew, I thought he had really died." But you said about yourself that you could have been more patient, more kind, and more empathetic. And I was just wondering, do you really feel like those are things that you should have been more?
Sure. I mean, we can all be more of those things, right? I have issues with all those things throughout in various different ways. I mean, they're not to the point where they get me in kind of trouble or anything, I think in my younger comedy days, there was probably less empathy in general, and it was more about what's going to be the funniest thing ever, less worried about the people that we were making fun of or even working with. So there's probably some of that comes with growing up and thinking about life, and I'm a fairly impatient person, and it's easy to get me riled up. So but they're all like in that manageable zone. They're not like, I don't need some kind of what do you call it, shock therapy or something.
I mean, you strike me as like a very warm, nice person, but maybe I'm being fooled.
Thank you. No, I tried. I mean, that's kind of my natural inclination, I think. I've presented myself publicly and for so many years as like a jerk in various characters that rightfully maybe is way I'm perceived. And sometimes on my like I don't have, like I said, I don't have a lot of patience. So if somebody's being annoying or not getting to the point, or I feel comfortable, not necessarily just being the nicest person about that. Also, being the nicest person in the room isn't always the most fun person in the room, So I have my opinions. There's things I don't like. I've talked to, I'm not Father Teresa here, but yeah, I mean, I think if on a one-to-one basis, if we were at a party or, there's a sense that, yes, I guess I'm pretty nice. I try to be pretty nice. All right. Sorry. Sue me. But I also like making people laugh. And sometimes that makes, those things don't always go well together.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything in your past work that you regret, like that you feel was mean-spirited?
I mean, there's stuff in Awesome Show that is, the joke is the casting, and that sometimes is not fair to the person involved, but it's tricky because those people, everybody in that show loves being in that show, and there was never any duplicity about it. There was never any, like, haha, we got you. And then they are crying and saying, why did you show, everybody involved in the show, the non-actors and the people that are kind of not, who you're used to seeing on TV, always are just like, when can we do this again? So it never feels like we're intentionally exploiting or intentionally exploitive, but it's sort of a compact you make with the audience. We're like, well, if you think this is funny, then we're on the same page about this kind of stuff. And I just grew up watching, whether it was Letterman, where they would have kind of oddballs on, or, just there's a whole sort of kind of comedy where that comes from. And I was really in love with that. But I think you just like, and also culture changes, there's things we probably, I can't think of a great example, but there's things where Eric and I would probably say, we probably wouldn't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't play that. We wouldn't play that joke the same way because of whatever it is, gender issues, or, the way you talk about women, anything like that has changed so much, even in the past 5 years, that it affects the way we write, because we don't want to just have, just put stuff out there just for the hell of it. We want there to be some thought to it. So all that stuff, I don't think it's worth kind of looking back and having regrets or anything like that. But that's the way I think about it.
So Moonbase 8.
Yes.
But this question actually applies to all your work. As I'm watching it, what I'm wondering is everything scripted, or is there some improv?
Well, let's see if I can answer that right. Everything is scripted. Not everything. It's scripted, but there's lots of room for improv.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always a pretty good, especially for a show like that, which is pretty traditional in my view, even though it's still weird. It's pretty plotted out. It's pretty planned out. There's scripts. And then I think you could almost tell the scenes where you're like, okay, this is a scene where these guys did the take and then they went off and had a little fun with it and painted around the corners a little bit. So it's a mix. There's definitely always a sense of going in there with a plan and a expected idea of what you hope to get out of it. And then also leave room for magic to happen or for fun to happen.
And in something like The Courtroom, I'm blanking on the name of it.
We call it The Trial.
The Trial. Was that improv?
So that was scripted to some degree because we knew kind of where we wanted it to go. We knew the beats of it. There were speeches written. There were questions written. It was kind of built like a court case. it was built, and that we had hired actors who were lawyers to play the part, so that they knew how you should behave. But then my stuff was kind of consciously unwritten because I wanted to very much react to the moment and be unprepared and create the sense of I'm really out of I don't want to have to remember anything. I just want to react and almost from like a animalistic place attack and be much more stupid and clueless. So that means don't write anything. Don't have some ideas of where it's going to go, but let me play off everybody else and come unprepared and use that to my advantage. Which was incredibly fun and probably the most fun thing I've ever done was that trial, because the cameras were all set up to basically work like a play where just you weren't thinking about cameras, you weren't thinking about takes, you were just living in that courtroom for a few days, and you just knew right away that it felt right, it felt real, and that everybody just was killing it. So
it's so funny and so weird. I mean that in a good way. I'm trying to describe it to a listener who might not be familiar. So the character of Tim Heidecker is accused of 20 counts of second-degree murder for selling tainted vape pens, yeah, at a concert. And it's really it's like courtroom. It's like 5 hours, right, of courtroom footage. Very much like watching any other not a courtroom TV, drama, but just any courtroom TV, footage you've seen.
Right. Yeah. Like the OJ trial would be the thing we looked at. Yeah. And it's because it comes from the On Cinema world where it was by the 10th season or 9th or 10th season. So we knew there's so much backstory on that show, so many storylines, so many characters that it was sort of this this deep well that you could draw from, not only to bring up a bunch of characters and storylines, but we just knew these characters so well and we knew exactly how they would behave. So yeah, it's a very satisfying experience for people that were fans of that show, to see it all kind of play out outside of the show. And it also caught on with people that didn't watch the show. And that's really cool too. That's this weird people not sure if it's real or if it is. It works on multiple levels, which is great.
And then there was a movie that grew out of that, right?
Mr. America.
Right.
Mr. America, yeah.
Yes, where you run for DA? District Attorney of San Bernardino, as a sort of spite. It's all parallels to the Trump world. It's like the spite campaign, which is I end up winning this case, but it's like a mistrial. But I still have such sort of vengeance towards the DA that prosecuted the case against me, that I run for district attorney. No expertise. All right. I want to ask you about Office Hours Live, and then we'll take some listener questions, and then we'll do Just Me or Everyone.
Okay.
So Office Hours Live, your very funny podcast that I feel like a whole community has grown out of which my husband is, he's a huge fan, and he's a Patreon subscriber,
nice.
Listens and watches every week. I didn't realize, though, that you've been doing this since 2016, right?
Yeah. I put out an album called In Glendale, which was sort of my first serious record, and I didn't have any way to promote it, or there was some promotion, but and right at that time, Facebook had introduced Facebook Live, and I was in my office at Absolutely Productions, and I just said, well, I'll just do this live Facebook thing and take calls through Skype, put a Skype number out there, and I'll just do this radio show through these two formats, and it was, I'm lucky that I have an audience through Twitter, through my TV shows. There's just people out there. You could put a phone number out there. They're going to provide you with a show, just by saying, where are you calling from? Oh, I'm in Denmark. Whoa. Well, what's that like? And then that becomes a conversation. So it was really fun. And it started that way. And without, I always just wanted to make it a thing that I could enjoy doing without having to really work at. And that when that time came to do the show, I could switch it on and it would just be me for an hour and a half talking to people. And it's from there it's grown. We got taken a little more seriously, but I still love the idea of going to bed the night before and not really knowing what the show is going to be like, making sure that it feels really live and spontaneous. And now I get to do it with my friends, Vic Berger, who's a genius satirical comedy editor, and Doug Lusenhop, who's been with the Tim and Eric shows from the very beginning. And we just get together and, make each other laugh and talk to the audience and sometimes talk about what's going on in the world and how we feel about it and get to hear how other people think about it. Yeah, it's been fun.
Do you screen the calls at all?
No. Well, we didn't for a long time through Skype because I couldn't. It was just the phone would ring and I'd answer it. It was just nothing ever really worked that well. Now it's kind of gotten smaller in a way. We've just moved over to Zoom because it technically it just works really well for this kind of show. So we can throw everybody in the Zoom room and there's like maybe 100 people in there or something, and we can see them and I can choose. Let's see what Joe's got to say. Let's see what Wendy has to say. So there's not like a pre-screening chat. I kind of I keep on asking, I want to get that random 1-800 number so we can get truly random people calling in. Because you can just hang up on people if they start, saying terrible things or are boring. But I like the randomness of it and the unpredictability of it.
And Vic and Doug live with you now, right?
No, that's a joke on the show.
Oh.
That's a joke on the show. There's this guy, there's this sort of right-wing, sort of Joe Rogan wannabe guy named Tim Pool, who's actually very successful at this, but he's this, a streamer, talk show guy. And he has a situation where I think he has this kind of compound or a house where people that are on his show also live there. And it's sort of a play off of that world. But no, Vic has a family and Doug lives somewhere else. And we don't live together now.
I think my husband, again,
that's hilarious.
Super into everything. I think he thinks that you actually have a compound in Glendale and that they live there.
Well, I don't want to burst his bubble.
I hope he doesn't see this.
Okay.
But you kind of discovered Vic, right?
I kind of literally did. Yes. He sent, he was an On Cinema fan who sent us some music videos that he had made based on the show, like fan fiction kind of stuff. And his videos weren't that great. They were just good songs, but he could edit. And we kind of hired him to cut some stuff for the show. And then he just went off and found this new way of taking, weird video. I remember he had this video of Joe Perry from Aerosmith with his horse in a stable. It was really one of the first things he ever did. And it was just immediately, just the way he looped it and the way he zoomed in on things. It was just so immediately really funny and really different, that I think I was like, ooh, you got to do more of those, So, and then it kind of intersected with the 2015, 2016 Trump, Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz, like all those guys were kind of on the news all the time. And I think Vic found a way to play with them a lot and it became his thing.
And you have two people playing drops on your podcast, which I love.
Doug and Vic. Yeah. Competing, they're in a little rap battle back there, or a drop battle.
Have you always loved drops?
Well, I grew up listening to, morning radio and Howard Stern, and, that's such a big component of the show, of those shows, that I love it. It's so fun. It's, it adds texture. It adds chaos, and I love all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's take some questions that people sent in. But first, I want to tell you, If you think you may be depressed or you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious, BetterHelp Online Counseling offers licensed professional therapists who are trained to listen and to help with issues including anxiety, depression, LGBT matters, anger, family conflicts, and more. Simply fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs and then get matched with your counselor in under 48 hours. You can easily schedule secure video or phone sessions. You can exchange unlimited messages to communicate with your therapist at your convenience. Everything is confidential. And the thing that I like to underline, because I think it's really significant, if you don't like the therapist that you are matched with, you can change no matter how many times. It is free to change so you don't have to feel like, oh, I'm committing. What if I don't like this person? What if it's not the right fit? They will get you to the right person. BetterHelp is an affordable option, and our listeners get 10% off your first month with the discount code BESTFRIEND. Get started today at BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/bestfriend. Again, betterhelp.com/bestfriend. Talk to a therapist online and get help. Okay, so I take questions from listeners. On Patreon. I'm at on Patreon. Patreon.com/Allison Rosen is where you go. All sorts of behind the scenes content, bonus episodes every week, etc. You can watch the Thursday show videos there. The Monday show videos, though, like this one, are on YouTube. And I definitely put on too much eyeliner today. So if you want to see that in person and you want to see Tim Heidecker smoking his Sharpie, go to youtube.com/Allison Rosen. And please subscribe. I'm basing my self-worth on those numbers, and it's not looking good. Okay, we have a song.
When we ask, they send them in. They're wondering how you have been. So thanks so much for answering these questions from our fans.
Okay, this first one is from Greg Heller, former regular on the Thursday show. The fake feces in the Dr. Wareheim sketch was unquestionably the most realistic fake feces I have ever seen. Do you know what it was made of or anything about the process of creating it? I need to know.
I don't. I can't. I mean, it's got to have been. It has to have been some kind of chocolate product. But that thing is really the funniest thing. Like the last episode that we put of that is just our crack ups. And Eric really was, I don't know what was going on with him, if he was like a little sleep deprived or something, but he could not get through he couldn't get through 10 seconds of those episodes without cracking up. It was so funny to try to do that seriously. And if you watch the last episode of that series on YouTube, it's all the laughs, and that can be cheap, but it's genuinely like us losing our minds. So very funny day.
Do you recall what was like the hardest thing you've done to get through?
That's one of them. But I think that was more on Eric. I think I was sort of just like, come on, man, let's do this. Let's get this done. So much. I mean, the On Cinema, the hardest thing we do in On Cinema is the live, we do the live Oscar specials. So those are 3-hour fully live, insane specials. And there's a lot of moments of me just like, holding, like, just, cut away. Someone cut away. Because a lot of it's improvised. And I think with improv, you don't know what you're going to say. Like when you say it, it's the first time you're hearing it. So Greg's bad at that. He will go on and on and on. And then there's a great clip of him breaking from one of the specials where he's just talking about this movie called Cuffs with Christian Slater. And, he eventually just realizes what the hell he's doing talking about this movie. And he cracks and the camera cuts away. And, so that always feels like the stress of that is very, very intense.
Trice Sanders says, how did he end up in Jordan Peele's Us? And does he have an interest in doing more horror stuff?
I was on the set of Moonbase, which just came out on Showtime. And I got an email that Jordan Peele was interested in meeting with me. So he came by the set the next day because we were shooting, and he just was like, he sent me the script the night before, and I knew him a little bit through friends and through comedy and stuff, but didn't know him that well. And he was like, yeah, I wrote this movie. As I'm writing it, I kind of was picturing you in this part. And if you would I'd love to have you do it. And that was it. I was just, okay, whatever you want, man. Like how cool, just the best.
Mm-hmm.
So, and would I do horror? Of course I'd do any, I don't think in terms of genres. If it's an interesting project with good people and it seems like it's going to be a fun time, then I'm all on board.
Whitney C says, what was his nickname when he was a kid? If not applicable, what nicknames does he have for people in his life?
Oh boy. I don't think I had a name. I'm Tim. I mean, Tim is, Timmy and Timbo and Decker and, yeah, not a big nickname guy.
And do you have nicknames for people in your life?
Well, my daughter's name is Amelia and we call her Millie or Mill, mostly Mill. So she gets Mill a lot. And my wife is Hun.
Okay. Some QAnon people were bothering them about one of his videos. Is that all smoothed over now?
Nothing's ever smoothed over with these people. There's no smoothing over. I try my best to explain myself and where I come from. And there are videos, from our show, awesome show that are, it's a comedy show. And there was a sketch about child clowns, which is just about the stupidest, silliest thing ever. That seems to be some kind of code for the child sex, satanic sex ring that I'm involved in, which is not true. And I've said it a million times. I've tried to explain. It doesn't do much good because there's a sort of, the cult mentality is very hard to crack. So it is what it is, but I'm, confident in who I am and the kind of person I am. So I don't really worry about it too much.
Do you, kind of circling back to what we were talking about before, do you think that they really believe this or are they just messing with you?
It's a good question. I think I think nowadays that there's a whole group of people who believe some degree, some part of it. Some are all in. Some think that there's grades of it, or there's sort of degrees of it that, like, well, you may not be involved yourself, but you're complicit in in ignoring it. Like there's always this kind of, like, whatever you want to call that, rationalizing your own, your beliefs, like, well,
confirmation bias.
Yeah. And then there's certainly people that are just jumping on to fuck with me, to troll me, or to make me feel bad because of what I think, because of what I advocate for, who I advocate for.
And here's a related question. This came in on Twitter. Kevin Hoyt says, also, this might be a tired subject for the both of you, but you both deal with a ton of undeserved trolls. Could you discuss how you process that negative energy?
Well, are your trolls undeserved?
I feel they're undeserved. So I was the news girl on the Adam Carolla show for 4 years.
Okay.
So I think that's the source of my undeserved trolling.
Gotcha. The way I deal with them is it's so fascinating to me. And so it's hard for me to just block it out because I'm fascinated by people. I'm fascinated by why people do things. And also, like you said earlier, I'm there. I'd be interested in helping these people if they were interested in changing their fucking lives, or just not living in this world of trolling and hate. And so there's part of me that wants to be engaged in it in some way, but when it comes in big waves, and it's come in big waves for certain reasons, I've been blocking people. I block and I move on. What's it called? BAMO?
Oh, I don't know that
BAMO.
one. I need to. Does it bother you?
Does it bother me? Of course. I said it to somebody, the great Larry Charles, who's director of many great things. I said, yeah, I've just been getting killed, right? I've just been getting hammered with just the worst messages, and he just looked at me like, it's got to be horrible. And some people throw it up. It's just the internet. That's just the internet. But he really got it. He's like, that's got to really drain on you. It's just really got to bring you down. And, it does. And, but when you block it, You block somebody, they're out of your timeline, or they're out of your hair pretty much for good until they get a new account and do it again. But it does if you block correctly, I think, if you kind of then, because I still like using I like being in the community of Twitter. It's like there's great things about it. It's fun. My audience is generally really funny, and really it's great to hear what they have to say about things. And there's wonderful things about it. But if you can remove some of that negativity, it really does go away. And when you don't see it, you don't feel that way. And that's kind of the key,
I tend to mute more than block, but then
I used to do that.
Yeah. But if someone sends me something like super hate filled or obscene, and I'm not a prude, but I don't need your dick pics, then I will block.
Yeah, I guess the block makes sense to me now, because then they can't really engage. They can't really see what I'm saying. And then they move on to somebody else. I think that it really is sort of a gamer mentality of their Twitter, their keyboard is just firing off, missiles in a first person shooter game. And if there's no target there, then they find another one. So I think just me getting out of their lives is helpful too, maybe for them and for me, because then they just forget about it or move on.
Yeah. I think when it first started, it hurt a lot. And then I got to a point where I was like, oh, I'm able to handle, and maybe not even undeserved trolling as much as, well, yeah, just when you're in the public eye at all, everyone gets it. Women, especially, get negativity. And then I kind of got to a point where it started rolling off. And then now I really don't get it that much, but I'd say I definitely handle it better than I used to, but it always has the potential to feel really shitty. Something I've realized is that there's this part of me that wants, and I think it's why I do what I do, wants so desperately to be understood. And I think I need to get over that. It'd be so great if that desire to be heard and understood were fulfilled within my my family, and then I didn't have that need.
Absolutely. And I think I react much stronger to negativity than positivity too. I mean, I get tremendous, lovely notes about whatever if I post something about Moonbase. Loved it. Thank you. It was great. We loved, me and my wife watched it last night. Had so much fun. You guys are great together. 10 of those that I just kind of glossed through.
Yeah.
And then you get one that goes sucked. And that's what I dwell on. Right. I go, fucking sucked. Shit. God damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, well. So yeah, the other day I got a DM and it was a lot of great things. And then one was like, I'm a fan and I thought the show was terrible. And I just, part of me just wants to go, why do you think I want to hear that? Why do you think A, that I worked hard on it and that I like it and I'm proud of it and I'm putting it out there onto my social media, and other people seem to like it because there's that there you could see. So just let it go. I don't expect everyone to like everything I do, of course, but people that tell you what they think about your work in a negative way is gotten it just is bad manners. It's just sort of rude. It's like, would you say that to me if you saw me at a coffee shop?
No, I don't. And I don't understand why they do it. It's, excuse me, the insult from someone that's couched as well-meaning is worse sometimes than just outright trolling. Because then you're like, this is this person liked everything else I did. Why did this fall short?
And that might even be, that guy might even be so targeted with his trolling that he's saying that in a way to make me feel bad. He's saying it, I'm a fan and this sucks, knowing that that's going to even fuck me up.
Probably. I'll get some that are been listening for a while, blah, blah, blah. And it's whatever they say makes it clear that, because I've been outspoken politically. Right. And so I get not a ton because people, I think they know that what my politics are. They know I'm, very liberal. But still I will get comments from people, and it's like, if you're listening regularly, this is not a surprise to you.
Right.
What I think and what I feel.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, that comes up with me all the time. They go, I can't believe that you started talking about politics. I'm like, dude, I've been talking about politics for 10 years now. So you're not paying attention, or you're trying to get under my skin. And the last thing I'll just say real quick is people can listen to this and be like, dude, you're so sensitive, man. You can't be so sensitive. Well, the fact is I am sensitive. And I think that is part of what makes me somebody that's a creative person. Like, I thought about this. It was like, writers, actors, musicians, like we're very sensitive in a way that feeds our creativity, our sensitivity. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's like, I wear my emotions, I pick up on things maybe more than other people do in terms of like, concepts or things that I want to write about by being sensitive to it. So it's not a negative. It's just that's how I'm sort of wired. That's
a really good point. And now I want to say something positive about Moonbase 8 that will just go in one ear and out the other, because you're just going to focus on something negative. But I really loved it. And by the end, I was like, no, I need like 1,000 more episodes, because I just want to hang out with these characters.
That's very nice. And I think it is a show that you got to kind of watch a few to get the rhythm of the show and to understand the characters. And I think the show gets better just by the fact that, when you make something, you just get better at making it for a while, and then it gets worse. But for now, you start out like, oh, let's try this, let's try that. But I appreciate that. And I think people that kind of maybe stick with it feel the same way. And I hate to say this, I don't want to make it a gender thing. Women are liking it, and just from my own unscientific perception of this, like the reviews that were the better reviews, or the best reviews, were like written by women critics, and like women are right. And I don't know. There's like a sweetness to the show that might have something to do with. But maybe I'm taking that back. I don't want to say it's just because but does that make any sense to you?
Yes. My suspicion is that your Adult Swim stuff skews male.
Heavily. Yes. Heavily.
Yes. So it would make sense that, whereas this is, like you were saying, it's a little more conventional. That's not why women are liking it more, but
right.
It is.
This is the problem. I hate even bringing it up because, but I just have noticed, like, some guys are
sweet.
Like,
it's got a heart. It's like, it's about, three misfits who kind of form a family.
Yes. And the example today, somebody was like, my wife hates your stuff and she really liked the show. So that's fine. I'll take that. But anyways, I appreciate the compliment. I'm going to accept it and appreciate it.
Good.
And
process it.
It has value to me.
Your character, who is very religious and has 12 children, what made you want to play him?
It felt like a funny joke, first of all, that he had several children and he was off to the moon, and that felt like a funny place to start, that he was literally a missionary being sent into the heavens. And for sort of, not to give anything away, but his pastor is kind of behind this, and it feels a little bit like he's getting shoved out the door. So there's that. It was a fun to play. Like we've discussed, I've played a lot of kind of nefarious or sort of narcissistic jerks. And this character's not like that at all. He's very kind of dumb but sweet and not very kind of harmless. So yeah, that's a fun place for me to be, to try to do something a little different.
I encourage everyone to go watch it. It's on Showtime. You can see all 6 episodes. And will there be a potential season 2?
We'd all love to do one. I think, we made this show through A24, the great independent film company, a couple years ago, and then on spec, without a studio, without like a network attached. So then they sold it to Showtime, and they've been great. As it seems like they want to do more. We have to wait to find out.
Did you do all the episodes on spec?
Yeah, we made 6 episodes on spec and sold it eventually.
Was that weird for you?
It wasn't weird. It was a little like it was great because we didn't have to go through that sort of development pilot process. It felt like we had John and Fred and John Kreisel, the director, and it's really hard to pin everybody down. And we just thought, well, if we were going to, and John Riley especially is very much like, I don't really want to go through the whole TV development process. I don't need to. And if I'm going to do this and we're going to do this together, let's do it exactly the way we want to do it, and do it like a movie where you go off and you make it, get it funded, and then sell it. So that's what we did. But it took a minute to find a home because of the way it was done, where most places are kind of like, yeah, we tend to develop our own shows, and that's how we like to do things. And there were some other space shows, which we won't discuss, that were coming in development around the same time. So there was a weird time. But Showtime, came in and loved the show and still does. And I think they've been really smart with the way they've put it out. And, I'm very happy with the fact that it's a reputable place, it's not some backwater weird, late night cable channel, which is also great too.
It's prestigious.
Yeah, it's prestigious, right?
Or prestigious, as some people say, but I don't like that. Let's do Just Me or Everyone. This is where people share things they think or do, and they wonder, is it just them or is it everyone? If you would like to send yours in, tweet them to @ARIYMBF. That's Allison Rosen's new best friend. #JMOE, and there's a song.
Sometimes I ponder on something I have thought or done. Is it just me or everyone?
All right. Now you, Tim Heidecker, have a Just Me or Everyone, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I have a fear of heights, specifically bridges with ledges, where I have the feeling that I could jump off the bridge. And it's not a thing that I want to jump off. It's a feeling of like, what if I make this terrible judgment error and jump? I could do it. And I don't want to, I could. So it's gotten worse and worse as I get older. And as I've talked about with people, apparently it's a thing that people have.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real specific thing.
This is not just you. I don't find myself on bridges that often, but
no.
I was in a hotel room and I couldn't go out on the balcony because it was a balcony where if I wanted to, I could just, no, maybe not. Maybe I couldn't have. Maybe it was a balcony
over.
where I thought, what if I tried to? But anyway,
right.
I was just like, it wouldn't be that hard for me to just hop off the balcony to my death. So I can't go out there. It was very weird.
It hit me. It was 10 or so years ago. I was walking across the Golden Gate Bridge, and I don't think I had it really before that. It just was like, I literally had to sit down on the pavement and just like almost crawl back across, just being like that ledge in particular is sort of famous for being too low.
Mm-hmm.
It's like really almost up to it's like your hip level or a little higher than that, but it's really, and you're just, you're very high up,
right,
in the middle of this the giant bay, and it's kind of gotten worse. And I do really think I need to deal with it somehow. But yeah, that's my deal.
Are you okay flying?
Yeah, totally fine. I mean, you can put me in an enclosed space, and I could be up in the moon, or not maybe at the moon, but I could be high up. And those what's that thing in London? The Eye with the giant Ferris wheel.
Oh, I know what you mean. I don't know the name, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, I could sit in those things. Like I can be up high. I just can't be in a position where I could make the fatal decision to jump.
Right.
Which I also when would I ever do
feel that a little bit like on a subway platform. What if I just decide to just jump off? I wouldn't, but what if I do?
the weird thing is, I understand that, but if I'm on the Golden Gate Bridge, I could say the same thing about traffic to the left of me, which is going flying by. I could jump into traffic. I don't fear that as much.
It's just the heights.
It's the heights. It's sort of it's the abyss.
I realized I do and I don't have a fear of heights, or rather I have it's a pretty mild one. But when my husband and I were house hunting, I didn't want to live up in the hills, which is, I tried to find anywhere online, evidence that this is an actual phobia. And I don't think this might be a true just me. I have some weird fear of living in the hills for fear that it'll all collapse, or what if we need to get somewhere fast and then we have to do these slow little switchbacks. I don't know.
I live actually up in some hills in Glendale, and I like the idea of there's very little chance of flooding when the big earthquake happens.
That's smart.
There's no ocean coming up to my, it'll come up halfway the road, but not up to my house.
But you don't worry about your, wait, do you live on the kind of hills where if you park your car outside your house, you can't even get the door to stay open?
Not that steep. No.
Okay. And you don't worry about your house coming crumbling down?
Not really. No, I don't have that fear.
Well, must be nice. Okay, let's see. James Leroy Wilson says,
yes.
I don't remember any fact while watching Jeopardy that I got wrong. I only remember when I was correct. I feel like that's everyone.
Yeah. I feel I don't remember much either way, to be honest with you. But.
Chode to Joy. I've burned my mouth approximately 600 times during the ongoing quarantine. Why don't I learn? I mean, I have follow-up questions like what's going on during quarantine that's different than your normal life that's making it so everything's hotter.
Yeah, lots of cookies coming out of the oven, maybe?
Right. Oh, like a hot chocolate chip?
Yeah.
Oh, I have a question for you. I also have a segment called Snack Chat. This is more snack chat, but I'm doing it inside Just Mirror Everyone.
Sure.
I know you've talked about your love of peanut M&Ms.
Yeah, it's embarrassing a little bit, but
I think you should wear it with pride. How do you feel about the other flavors, though?
No interest, really. No interest. What do you got? Plain? No thanks. Peanut butter? Nah. Mushy. I haven't gotten into the other flavors, honestly. They might be great. You know what I love, and this is more of a California thing, but C's candies?
I sure do.
C's candies, dark chocolate almond clusters or whatever they are. That's about the best thing, I think, in the candy world. That puts peanut M&Ms to shame.
Interesting.
They're unbelievably good.
What is in there besides almonds and dark chocolate?
It's just like a dark chocolate melted over 3 or 4 almonds. So they make like a little mound of almonds that are covered in dark chocolate. The chocolate's just really good, and it's a nice ratio. I think that is key. But they sell them in this little bag, and I could eat half the bag very, very quickly in a dangerous way.
They make almond M&Ms. I'm not a fan, but they do make them.
I probably wouldn't be a fan either. But there's something about these C's dark chocolate almond clusters that are very, very special. My
C's special thing is they have these things called Scotch Kisses, which it's like butterscotch wrapped around a marshmallow, but the texture of the butterscotch, it's not thick or sticky. It's
right,
like waxy in a good way.
They do good work.
I really appreciate Mary C. Tim Heidecker, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be on my show.
It was a pleasure talking to you, Allison. Thank you.
It was wonderful talking to you. If you guys like what you're hearing, make sure you're subscribed. Listen to my other podcast, Childish, which is my parenting-ish podcast. You don't have to have kids to listen. I do that with Greg Fitzsimmons. Follow me on social media at Allison Rosen. Follow the show's Twitter feed at ARIYNBF. If you like what you're hearing, not only make sure you're subscribed, and subscribe your friends, but leave us a nice comment, click 5 stars. That helps. I'm on Patreon, like I mentioned, patreon.com/Allison Rosen. I'm also on Cameo. Tim, someone told me recently that I should do the guest plugs before my own, and I really should, but I didn't. Yeah. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do you want me to, or should I? Or should you?
I think you should do yours.
Oh. I feel terrible doing them, but...
You want me to do them?
Isn't it? Yeah, you do them probably better anyways.
Well, everyone, follow Tim Heidecker on Twitter and on Instagram. Are you Timothy Heidecker or Tim Heidecker?
I'm just at Tim Heidecker, I think on both platforms. It might be real Tim Heidecker on Instagram, but that doesn't matter.
I mean, it'll come up if you search the name. It'll come up.
Yeah.
Listen to Office Hours Live and watch Office Hours Live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Watch Moonbase 8 on Showtime. An Evening with Tim Heidecker, which is a how would I describe it? Well, it's your stand-up, but it's like a send-up of self-important stand-ups.
Yes, it's it's a parody of sort of a truth-telling stand-up comedy.
Did you see the Comedy Store documentary?
Not yet. I bet there's a lot to draw from there.
Oh, yes.
For me.
That's on YouTube. And wait, I've got more to say about where they could. Oh, you're on Patreon, patreon.com/Office Hours Live.
Office Hours Live. Yes, Office Hours Live.
I feel like I left out. All right, did I mention?
Fear of Death?
What was it?
Fear of Death?
Oh, yeah. Duh. Fear of Death. Go buy it wherever you buy albums.
Yeah, stream it, buy it, however you consume music. I appreciate it.
It's really good.
Thank you.
You will love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Allison. I'll see you later.
Okay. And listeners, thank you so much for listening. I love you. You matter. Goodbye.
Hey, do you know about the Allison Rosen Show? We had a good time, but now we gotta go. Yeah, Allison Rosen is your new best friend.